Sponsored by Taylor Freelance, Rainier Ballistics, Hodgdon Powders, and JPL Precision.
Hey PowerFacts fans, I'm Rick, and we are here at Renton Fish and Game Club to do the follow-up on Action Shooting International. I mentioned it in an earlier episode, just as I usually do, kind of an introduction, and then, hey, we'll do something on it later and actually get out the range and take a look at it. And I have with me here Robin Taylor and Sandy Wiley from ASI, and we're just going to do a little interview, and then we'll get out to the range and show you some of the sport and how it runs. So guys, for starters, what was the need that you think needed to be filled that ASI fills in the shooting sports?
As most of you know, I used to work for the U.S. Practical Shooting Association for the headquarters staff. And Sandy and I both have spent a lot of time on IDPA and USPSA events. One of the things that we noticed over time is that if a new guy showed up, usually they were way out of their depth. Mm-hmm. Through no fault of their own. They're just showing up trying to play semi-pro ball the first day.
Right.
And that was really inappropriate for them. And as a result, they almost never came back.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of people that showed up to a first USPSA match and survived to come back to a second USPSA match is something like 1 in 4.
Yes.
1 in 8.
Yes.
And that's assuming he showed up in the first place.
Right.
So our goal with ASI has been to create a shooting sport for the regular guy that's spun in such a way that a regular gun owner can take a gun in a bag if they want, and show up to a match and have the benefit of all of those years of experience that we have in the semi-pro world. So all of the range safety processes, all of the stage design processes, all of that sort of stuff is all there in the background, but the skill level is appropriate to somebody that's a brand new shooter, and they don't even have to have a holster.
Right. Now, I've shot 2 or 3 ASI matches already, so I'm a little bit familiar with it. And I think on the introduction, I described it as having elements of IDPA, mm-hmm. USPSA, GSSF. And I think beforehand, when I just sort of heard about it, I thought, this reminds me a lot of IDPA. You've got cover, mm-hmm. essentially not exposing yourself to the threat targets.
Right.
You've got some movement. Mm-hmm. You've got reloads. And some prop manipulation, mm-hmm. which I think is kind of a fun element. Absolutely. That doesn't really have anything to do with shooting itself, mm-hmm. but I think it's an attraction, that yep. I'm doing something. And where did you guys decide, how did you decide which bits and pieces of existing shooting sports you were going to embrace those, and which ones we don't, that's one of the things we're trying to get away from with this game.
It's been a real learning process for both Sandy and I, as far as what we're going to pick up and what we're not. My personal experience coming from the USPSA world is the USPSA world is quite open as far as its equipment rules. Not as open as we are, but there's quite a range. Mm. And when I've switched back and forth, I'm primarily a USPSA guy, Sandy's primarily an IDPA guy, and we both shoot on either side of the fence.
Sure.
So when I shoot an IDPA match, the rules are constantly in my head.
Yeah.
Particularly in the days when we had when round dumping was a big sin.
Yeah.
If you missed a round, that can change your entire plan for the stage.
Right.
So I'm forever doing like, how many rounds have I got in the gun, and I missed one. Now I have to know how I have to reload like this and not like that. It's
right.
this constant thinking about rules process.
Right.
And I'm fairly familiar with my equipment already. I know how to shoot these matches. And I'm still going,
Right.
So for a new guy walking into that, we try to eliminate as much of that rule consciousness as possible.
Uh-huh.
So instead of target order versus target priority, all this kind of stuff, we have a line on the floor. Stay on this side of the line, which
right.
is essentially a USPSA-ism.
Yes.
But
there's some support for that in IDPA going forward. People have been saying, a large part of the issue with IDPA officiating is because there's no fault line, it's more like the baseball umpire deciding if it's a strike or not. The ball doesn't pass through a box. He's just imagining where the ball should go. And it's the same deal now. The shooter is imagining where his foot should be, while the safety officer is imagining it should be in a little bit different place. And you put a fault line down, and it's just pass-fail.
It's pass-fail. And it gets rid of a lot of the concern. We started out with things like a 10 round magazine limit, which is comparable to IDPA. Mm-hmm. And we, to our great surprise, we discovered that for a new gun owner, that's a challenge. Yeah, and
requiring them to
yeah.
put 10 rounds, no more, no less.
Mostly because they've got all of this other stuff going on. They're brand new to the process, and,
Right.
and that's something we have to constantly remind ourselves about. Is that
Right.
the people that are rolling up to the line have never done this before. They have never done anything but shoot in a square range environment.
Right.
So the idea that they're going to get out of a chair with a loaded gun in their hand is
Right.
really new, and so they're focused on that.
Right.
And so we've tried to remove as many of those little details as possible. So we got rid of the mag limit because it became unenforceable.
Right.
You know, guys would roll up with 11 rounds or 14 rounds
Sure.
or whatever.
Well, and
Just
one of the things about officiating IDPA is that you've got some guys have 7 rounds in their gun, some have 6, some have 9, some have 11.
Yeah.
And from the officiating standpoint, you need to know, well, hold it. The guy was supposed to reload over here, and he reloaded over there. And he might make a mistake, you might make a mistake, and this way, one of the things that I liked is that most of the reloads are reload before you fire your last round.
Right.
And the shooter might download their gun so that it's at slide lock at a certain point on the stage of their choosing.
Mhm.
They might just, do a speed reload when it's best or least
Right.
suitable, but it's just the shooter they're left to their own devices, just perform a reload. Don't
Right.
forget to perform a reload.
And there's no advantage to downloading your gun so it loads from slide lock. I mean,
Right.
there's no reason there's no, at least none that I can think of. There's no
Yeah.
logical reason other than trying to be ultra gamey, and even
Yeah.
in an ultra
Well,
gaming context.
and it can
doesn't
also
really
be a
matter.
safety issue. I've shot some indoor matches that were kind of intro level, where they wanted all shooters to do slide lock reloads so that they weren't moving with a loaded gun, just to take one element
Yeah, and I
of
can
new
see
shooter
that.
out of it. So this stage, load your gun with 6, so that as you're getting up
Right.
and moving over there, your gun is empty. Just
And
things
we've
like
done
that.
that. We
and the
have
shooter
a
can
couple
choose
of
to do
our-
that if they don't feel like they don't want to run and gun. They can do the reload when they want.
A
So I thought
couple-
that was a cool kind of an introductory element. Takes one more thing off
Sure.
the shooter's plate, and they can advance to doing speed reloads or whatever they want as they become a better shooter. The rules don't dictate that.
Absolutely. And I think
it's interesting that the competitors find comfort in things like I'm going to download the 6 so that I know when I'm at this point,
Time
this
to
is what I
reload.
have to do and move on, so I don't forget
Yeah.
to do the reload before the last shot. It has been really interesting over the last year watching the competitors and what we've learned from. We've learned a lot.
Now, are you still exclusively shooting in the Seattle area so that you guys can oversee the matches and this learning process will help turn it? My understanding is you expect to turn it into kind of a turnkey product where the shooter is sent a package of the club is sent a package of materials, rule book, timer, whatnot, and that they're not going to require oversight from the mothership the way IDPA and USPSA do, where they have to send somebody out to train your staff and whatnot. It's going to be more of a whatever contact you have with the clubs will be by phone and email and whatnot. And so if a far-flung club wants to form an ASI club at their range, geography doesn't really matter. I mean, the thing is going to be, you're not going to have a roaming group of people who are flying all over the country to oversee these ASI clubs.
I think you may be overcharacterizing that difference. USPSA doesn't have people that they don't have the rules police to send out of this.
No, but I'm thinking like
to check
range
them
officer
out.
training.
They do have range officer
Yes,
training. That's true.
yes.
But as far as their corporate office, they don't have any real direct association with the clubs. And we're looking at a similar model. We're intending to help out. A beginning club needs some help.
Sure.
And if that means we got to put somebody on an airplane to send them out and help them out, to help them get them off the ground, we'll do that.
Okay.
But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're still kind of proving things out here in the Seattle area. And
We have been approached from outside the area, but P-Ron, one of our founders, was approached I think a month or so ago, but we're not ready for that. But the design is to build for the club entity, because many times over my career I've had to interface with a lot of clubs and seen a lot of dynamics there, and many times you have a key person, and if Billy can't run the show, it's in trouble. And we're trying to set it up so it is a cohesive package that the range can use, that they can take virtually anyone that's got a modicum of experience, and they can pick up the playbook and go, and they'll have a program. It's not reliant upon someone that knows how to design stages and
Right.
He knows how to do everything.
And that was one of the other elements that I found attractive with my experiences in USPS and IDPA. Often there's a lot of concern, let's say, about the legality of stages.
Yep.
And if the stages are provided by someone who's pre-approved them, you eliminate half the rule book because you don't have any stage design, rules. And if you're provided with a stage and you run it as it's designed, you know it's legal. There's no question it's legal because you guys have designed it. And I thought, another excellent element, because then that completely removes, I know when we're running our IDPA matches here at Renton, we'll have 15 safety officers unable to agree sometimes on whether or not a stage is legal because it's been set up with certain features that, I know we had a stage, we discussed it in an episode a while back where we couldn't even decide amongst ourselves which rules applied to a certain element of a certain stage.
Right.
And so all that goes out the window because you guys provide the stages. And I look at it sort of like the USPSA classification system where everybody has a certain set of stages. They're set up the same way, and you can track your development as a shooter if you shoot those stages over and over again.
Right.
Not to say that there's only 15 stages that you're going to shoot over and over again,
Right.
but I was just kind of thinking about the different elements of the shooting sports that I've shot and what I've considered shortcomings of them. And
Well, let me jump into that little piece for a minute. The rules body that exists for IDPA and USPSA exists for a reason, and anybody that has any three-gun experience will probably reflect back and go, yeah, there's a reason they had all those rules, because now the three-gunners have run headlong into, oh yeah, we don't have a rule for that.
yeah,
So the USPSA IDPA world and the three-gun world now has this rules body because you're operating at a very high skill level. That is essentially a semi-pro world, particularly three-gun. But USPSA and IDPA are also a semi-pro world. So whether or not you are loading your magazines to division capacity, to use IDPA speak,
sure,
matters in
Yes.
that world.
yes,
For the regular guy on the street, it doesn't matter at all. If you're just trying to figure out how you're going to stand up without hooking a chair with your gun,
sure,
division capacity is completely irrelevant.
right,
And it is our hope that we can start bringing up a larger group of people that are guys with guns in a drawer at home. Gals that carry a gun in their purse, wherever they are, these real world gun owners, and raising their basic skill level to where they're enjoying themselves on a club basis. And that percentage of people that might have been able to survive that initial encounter with the USPSA IDPA will be larger, and we'll be feeding forward those
Right.
people, Martin Kolaseks of the world,
Yeah.
those guys that can shoot and have
Right.
those skills to compete at that next level. We'll go there with our blessing.
right. And that's the other thing too, is if you picked up on the general theme here, it's not that ASI is competition for IDPA or USPSA or even GSSF or some of the other shooting sports. It's really more like an introduction to action pistol shooting
Yep.
that translates into all the other sports. It's like an entry level sport, and that I think it's the move and shoot sport for everyone. In fact, see, but that's essentially. I was actually some guy. I was just on a forum that I frequent, and some guy said, "Hey, a few of my buddies and I, we shoot at this indoor range, and they don't have any kind of competition at all, and we're kind of interested. We don't really have any experience in it." And I just thought, well, if you're not experienced competitors,
Yep.
you're not range officers, you don't really have a background in competition, I sent him to you guys. I don't know if you've heard from him. He's out of state, but I just thought, that's exactly the guy I think that you're looking for.
That's what we're trying to create.
Both at the club level and at the shooter level. You don't need to have this background in competition shooting. You don't need to be a range officer. That you're going to get this kind of a startup
That's
sort
what I'm
of
looking for.
deal.
Yeah. Our when we were talking about how this was going to look, kind of the optics of it, the general concept we have is a bowling league.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bowling league with guns,
Right.
with about that level of seriousness.
Right.
Yeah, we're keeping score. Yeah, we're trying to beat the guy next to us. But it's not a deal where we're fighting for every point,
Right.
and we're going to get all concerned about whether you're using a 14-pound or a 15-pound bowling ball.
Well,
We don't care.
and the matches that I've shot, I've looked at it almost as a break from competition shooting. Somebody who does a lot of I didn't beat this guy this week, and I'm going to get, there's really none of that. You can show up and you still are getting the trigger time. You can be as competitive with yourself as you want to be. And I look at it as just an opportunity to go to the range and hang out with gun people and kind of put some of the intensity. Yeah, it's more like a fun day at the range than it is a match environment sometimes.
It is much more relaxing. But we see that in the competitors that come over from IDPA and USPSA to get trigger time, whether it's with the real carry gun or something they want to work on or whatever. But it's a relaxing day. There's not the issue with arguing over rules all day. There's not the intensity of, oh gee, I lost some time here, points here. I've been astounded on a personal level, because I've been a competitor for a long time, that it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You still get your trigger time. You get the enjoyment factor is up for me as an administrator as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still very much in it. I mean, I coach Team God up in Bellingham, and we're the top, Scholastic Pistol team in the country. So the intensity is absolutely there.
Right.
But this is where I go to shoot my actual carry gun.
Uh-huh.
And that's an element that you run into in the USPSA IDPA world. Much as IDPA would like to, welcome that, and the bug matches are an effort to do that, and USPSA's carry optics division is an effort to do that on their side to be more inclusive.
Yeah.
But still, if you're shooting something like a car, like a 40 Smith & Wesson car with a laser on it,
Right.
that's a good real world street gun.
Right.
Very realistic gun to have as a home defense pistol, all that sort of stuff, and it makes no sense at all under the IDPA and USPSA rules.
Right.
Even in carry optics, it's just the wrong gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is where you go to shoot that gun.
And so you guys, do you even address things like optics, lasers in the rules? Or, I mean, is it just like if you've got a laser, that's fine? If you've got a scope on your gun, that's fine? Or
To some degree, we struggled a little bit with that. But currently, if you've got a laser, want to use it, fine. It's certainly not necessarily a competitive advantage. Optics, we've appreciated that there's a future in optics for the industry, and currently we've limited it to slide mounted, because there's some popular stuff out there now that's slide mounted. What we would not be as comfortable with is frame mounted optic that's got a 3-inch compensator on it, and that fits much more in USPSA.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the people that have those types of guns aren't really who we're targeting anyway.
Right.
But
Right.
The guy with the core,
he's in the right place.
He's bought a nice gun, and this is the place he can shoot it.
Yeah.
This isn't the place that guys roll up with their race gear.
Right.
It's just the wrong environment.
Right.
This is very real world oriented. It's relaxed in that way, but the emphasis is on the everyday use of firearms.
Mm-hmm.
You don't wear a race gun to the grocery store.
Right. And what about like single action? If I brought my 6-shooter, you don't mind
No
waiting
problem.
30 seconds while I do my reload?
No problem. In fact, one of the items I meant to get to is a lot of us in the firearms industry that have been around for a while carry snub nose revolvers either as a backup gun or as their primary concealed carry weapon,
Right.
and they almost never shoot them.
Right.
I mean, and the snubby is two things. It's a great fighting gun, and it's the gun of a master as far as shooting it.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
I say that because it's difficult to shoot accurately and to shoot well.
Sure.
But as far as a fighting gun, a snubby is essentially a gun and a pair of brass knuckles all rolled up into one.
Right.
If you have to go roll around on the ground with somebody, a snubby is a good thing to reach for.
Yeah.
But where are you going to shoot it?
Yeah.
You're never going to shoot a 5-round snubby
Yeah.
in an IDPA match and pray to be competitive at it.
Right.
But you could bring that here and be pretty comfortable. I mean, you'll be a little slower than everybody else because of the slow reload.
Right.
But we don't emphasize the reload. You have to make one, but I mean, it's not that thing. This is the place you go to actually practice with the gear that doesn't fit anywhere else and that you actually use.
Yeah.
The Browning High Power is another great example. It's a fantastic gun that the military forces have used all over the world. It's a great concealed carry piece, and there's nowhere for it to go. Nobody shoots it in IDPA. Nobody shoots it in USPSA.
I think Rick has one.
I've shot
I
some
should say
sanctioned matches.
virtually. I should say virtually.
Hardly anyone shoots it.
I should say
Yeah.
virtually no one, because it
Yeah.
doesn't fit anywhere. I mean, logically, if you were looking for a competitive gun, you wouldn't pick up a high power.
Probably not. Difficult to reload. Triggers generally aren't very good.
It's a little small and light, compared to a Glock 17 or compared to a 9mm 1911, for heaven's sake.
Well, and one of the things that I find is, I mean, I ran into this 15 years ago, is when I was shooting USPSA pistol every weekend, I realized that I had a bunch of guns that I never shot.
Yep.
And I thought, well, if I don't find some way to work them into my regular shooting schedule, they're never going to get shot. And that's why I started shooting 3-gun, because I had a shotgun, I had a couple of rifles, and I thought the only time they're ever going to get out of the safe is if I shoot a 3-gun match. And so I have kind of looked at ASI as the match that I can go to with the gun that doesn't fit anywhere else, and it fits in just fine in ASI.
With the real world guns.
Yeah, well, the gun that I brought today, I don't know if the weather is going to permit me to shoot it, is a conventional double action, single action, hammer fired gun with a hammer dropper on it.
Oh, okay.
And I shot that at an IDPA match, and clearly neither myself nor the gun is ready for any sort of real world. Yeah. But I thought at ASI, you know, I can struggle with remembering to flip the safety off. I can struggle with the double action first shot, some of the stuff that is just not really familiar to me, being a single action auto guy. Like the first stage, I dropped the hammer and forgot to flip the safety back off. So I draw the gun out and I'm
doing all
you know, oh, it's the safety, you know, and kind of stuff like that. And I just thought at ASI, I can screw up, the gun can malfunction, and I don't feel like it's ruining my day, you know, because it's just kind of,
and I think
just
it's
everything's
important
ratcheted down.
to focus on what you learned there. Now, we're talking about it from an experienced gun guy point of view. The new guy that rolls up, that has that experience, that he's going through all the same learning curve, but this is something that could have got him killed. I mean, it sounds all IDPA, all hardcore, which is not where I'm trying to be. But that learning experience is a gun safety experience. It's a real home defense experience. It's that has a lot of real on the street relevance.
Right.
And I don't mean that necessarily in like we're going to go kill the bad guys coming out.
Right, but I know, like I brought my.
But I mean, you got to be safe with your gear.
Yeah, I brought my sister-in-law out to the range a couple of weeks ago. She's one of those people. Not disparagingly talking about those people, but she's got a gun zippered into a gun case.
That's our gal.
With the empty magazine out of the gun, and then a handful of rounds dumped in there with it, you know. And I just thought, you know, you wouldn't treat. You know, what if you had a fire extinguisher that you had to fill before you could use it? You know, I mean, who would take any, or you don't, you keep your flashlight and your batteries separate and it's dark, you know. Who treats any type of safety equipment, emergency equipment that way, you know? But I think people sometimes they're more afraid of the gun being loaded than unloaded, kind of thing, you know. And I think unless you have that familiarity, that yes, I know exactly how this thing works, and when it doesn't work, I know how to fix it. You can't do that anywhere but at the range, and it's a completely different environment. Even if you're not taking it really seriously, when the clock's running, it's a completely different environment. And I just think, you know, that the idea that it's a shooting sport for everybody, it literally is a way for, I think, that people that believe that owning a gun means they're armed. I mean, that's an old quote from Jeff Cooper. You're no more armed by owning a gun than you are a musician by owning a piano or whatever. Yeah. And so I think it's, you know, people that own guns kind of owe it to themselves and everybody around them to get out and use them. And this is just
that's
one
more of our emphasis.
Yeah.
I'm much more interested. I mean, we've talked about sort of the defensive side, but that's a lesser aspect of what we're interested in. I'm much more interested in taking this gal you're talking about that has a gun in a bag and a pile of bullets.
Yeah.
Living
probably
in a closet.
20-year-old.
Yeah, probably 20 years old.
Yeah.
Living in a closet somewhere. Or they bought it last week because they're scared of the stuff that went on in Paris.
Yeah.
That's a very rational reaction.
Right.
So that person that's got a gun in a drawer and a pile of bullets, that's, you know, as gun owners, it's kind of incumbent on us to help train people like that so that they go from being, I have this gun in the corner of the closet with dust raining down on it, to somebody that goes to the range once or twice a year and shoots it. Yeah. There's, as you well know, there is a gigantic difference between those two people.
Sure, yeah.
As far as their basic, I mean, they come out and shoot an ASI match twice a year, you know, invest, you know, $30-$40 in ammo. They're gonna, the training value, as far as gun safety and gun familiarity of going and doing that, is light years from where they're going to be just from going, even if they went to a square range environment and shot 10 rounds. Just getting them off the couch and shooting something is a tremendous improvement qualitatively and objectively as far as gun safety goes.
Right.
Well, when you talk about the square range too, that for a new shooter to go to a standard range, people lined up. There's not a lot of support for them traditionally. What you run into in this environment is you've got a lot of people that are really supportive. That they get some interaction, they get comfortable. It's not just they're looking at all the people on the left and right, and they get involved, and the support level is great.
And it's not like they're going to roll up with a gun in a bag and we're going to say, "Go."
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be dangerous, right?
Right.
So when a new person shows up, we require them to go basically hang out with a guy like Sandy for half an hour,
Right.
and they'll go through and make sure all their skills are where they need to be. And if they're not, if they're not like you're going to be a little dangerous, then we won't let them compete.
Sure.
And not in a mean way, but like let's go work on your stuff here for a while, and then if we can get them up to a level where they need to be, great. We'll walk them through a stage. Insist that they not run, which is one of the things about it.
Right,
We don't run from box to box.
And that's funny, when I've shot the matches, of course, as soon as I'm, bang, 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 I
That's
start
the
to
same
leap up,
thing,
and then I kind of go, okay, walk. Because I feel like, I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm not trying to put on a show, boy, look at how competitive he is. Just say, let's walk, I'll walk, And I think that's a part of what just kind of ratchets down the whole, if I save a second running instead of walking, nobody's paying attention.
And it takes down the intensity level, and it also, for those of us that have some shooting experience, it changes the level of the match because we're all competing, anyway. It's going on in the back of our head. It's just less intensely.
Yeah.
So it encourages you to be very smooth in an IDPA-like sort of way.
Yeah.
Where IDPA will have required movement phases and stuff, and you save your time by how gracefully you get from place to place rather than jerkily running around like a USPSA guy.
Right.
So I resist the same thing, trying to explode out of boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
And we handle some of that through course design too. I mean, the courses are similar, probably more similar in appearance to IDPA than USPSA, but the movement is ratcheted down a lot. There's not the 10 yards between positions.
Right.
We try and keep it 2 steps. So if someone like yourself that is a competitor wants to move a little faster from here to there, the advantage isn't as huge as
Right.
it
Is running 25 yards in a big
Right.
USPSA field course or something.
Right.
Yeah.
This is not an athletic event.
Right.
It is a physical event, but
Right.
it is not an athletic event.
Yeah.
There's nobody's doing CrossFit in order to kind of
Right.
shoot ASI better.
Right.
Right. It's just not that kind of deal.
Yeah.
This is a bowling league. It's not,
Right.
it's a very welcoming kind of supportive environment. It's not an
Right.
intense competition.
Yeah. So we're going to get out to the range. We're going to look at some stages. Do you guys have anything in particular, specific you want to add? Something?
One thing we didn't talk about was the logbook.
Oh, yeah.
We're working our way towards creating a publication for all the members that includes most of the repetitive courses and a way of tracking your performance in an old school on paper kind of way.
Yeah.
So you can say, when I shot this at Wade's indoor, 2 weeks ago, I shot it at this time, and then when I shot it over there at Renton, I shot it at that time. And
Right.
Wherever.
Similar to the USPSA classification system.
It's similar to the USPSA classification, but it's not oriented on Grandmaster.
Right.
It's not that kind of a thing. It's more of a production tracking deal.
Yeah. Well, it emphasizes your improvement rather than whether
Right.
you beat the other guy or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And our emphasis on that, along with that, there's a course description in there, and there's a description of the expected skills. So
Okay.
it'll do things like, this course will require you to move with a gun, or this course will require you to perform a reload. You
Okay.
can perform a reload in 2 or 3 different ways, and here they are.
Right.
Here's how you do the things we're going to test you on in this classifier course,
Right.
which is essentially what's going on. If you can imagine a classifier that came with a set of instructions
Right.
as to how to shoot it as opposed to how to set it up.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the
our
things that we run into in IDPA. If you do a walkthrough and say, engage T1 through T6 in tactical priority, perform a mandatory retain.
Yeah.
No, now they're called
Reload
tactical
with retention or
reload.
whatever.
Engage these targets in tactical sequence, and you get to the end, and then what's tactical sequence again?
Right.
What tactical? In T what? It's like if your description of how to shoot the stage is littered with terminology that somebody's never heard before, it's going to take them a while to get up to speed where they just understand what's going on. I remember we had a match here. It wasn't really a match, But at Renton Fishing Game Club, we have here USPSA, IDPA, Steel Challenge, Cowboy Action, and they did kind of like an all-discipline match where one stage was set up by the Cowboys, one stage was set up by the USPSA, and you're supposed to travel from bay to bay, and then there would be like a combined score at the end. And I got to the Cowboy stage, and they're saying, engage these in a Nevada reel, and then do, and like that's their equivalent of tack sequence, which means shoot each one once in the head, then each one in the left, leg, and then back to the head, from outside in, But if you're not familiar with the phrase, you don't know what's going on. Yeah. But if it's just like we're expecting you to do this, this, and this, and here's the definition of this, this, and this, you're prepared when you get there for what you expect.
And you're talking about definitions of what it is. We're at a step beyond that. We're going to ask you to get out of this chair and then go shoot around a barricade.
Right.
When you shoot around a barricade, here's how people often do it.
Okay.
Because the people we're talking to have never shot around a barricade before.
So it's almost it's coaching them as well as just
absolutely
just saying this is what you're going to do.
And not in a the IDPA rules. God bless them. We seem to be talking a lot about IDPA exercises, but the IDPA rules have a set of hidden truths in them. It's essentially a martial art written around the 1911. So you must do things going a certain way. The level we're at is where we set up a table, for example, and there's a target over there. A normal IDPA USPA person is just going to come up, shoot it, essentially freestyle, well seated, and go. The new guy off the street is going to often does something like this.
Right.
Puts their elbows on the table,
right.
And then the gun jumps around like a jet-powered pogo stick until they figure that out.
Right.
It's a very natural, normal thing to do if you're trying to shoot one accurate shot. But in a dynamic environment, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So we talk about stuff like, it generally works better if you don't have your elbows on the
table.
And in order to help them along, because they've never done this before.
Yeah, I'll have people ask me about, is it legal to brace the gun against a Bianchi barricade when you're shooting? And I'll say it's perfectly legal, but I wouldn't recommend it. The gun's going to be bouncing off. This thing's not stable. Right. Don't do it, kind of a thing. But they wouldn't know that.
And that's an emphasis that we have is we're not trying to preach tactics to people.
Right.
We're talking about, in the world of gun handling, this usually works better. And you might want to try this or try that. There's different ways to skin this particular cat, and here's some ways you might want to try it.
Uh-huh.
It's very supportive. There isn't a dogma associated with how you must do it within our world.
Right.
A lot of the realities of how we shoot guns is the particular techniques we use are oriented on a particular piece of equipment. The whole thumbs forward grip thing, not such a great idea if you're shooting a revolver.
Yeah, if you have long thumbs, especially.
You've got long thumbs. I mean, you're going to fill your thumb with copper bits. Yeah. So all of that stuff is really equipment based, and the dogmatic approach to it is inappropriate in my view.
Yeah.
Different people have different physical skills. They have different equipment. So we take a much more suggestive attitude towards things. Try this. It generally works better for us.
Right.
And so what you're going to see on the range today is we try and make matches at 4 stages. The goal there is to have good clearance time, get people through the day, and be home in time to mow the lawn. Not today, but so you'll see 7 stages out there today. 4 of them are the actual match. Side stages are done after, and they tend to be a little bit more movement, sometimes a little bit more challenging. But they're not required to shoot those, and currently we run those as a benefit for Wounded Warrior Project right now. There's a donation jar. People can choose to donate or not, but they're all entitled to shoot, and those results will be posted, but they'll be separated.
Because you want people to know when they show up, and that's part of the package. And I thought part of the appeal of the match format is I've shot plenty of matches where I got out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning and didn't get home till 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. Right. And so it's essentially an entire day. But if you commit to an ASI match, you may be show up at the range at 9:30 and you're home at 1 o'clock. I mean, I told my wife, typically on a match, if I'm at the range for IDPA, I'll say, I'll probably be home at 3 or 4 o'clock, And today I said, if I shoot 4 stages, I might see you at 1 o'clock. Like you said, we're not going to be mowing the lawn today. But if that was on the honey-do list, I'd have plenty of time to get honey-do stuff done after the match. Or if you want to go out and spend the afternoon with the kids or whatever, the whole day isn't taken up by the match. And it also seems like conveniently it's about 50 rounds.
Yeah, that's actually
You
that's a
can
design
stop
goal.
at the gun store, pick up a box of ammo on the way to the range, and
Yeah.
shoot the match. You don't need to spend money or reloading, hand loading time. I mean, that's another thing. People that are used to shooting, they're shooting 500 rounds a week or something. That's expensive, time consuming. ASI just kind of compresses it down in either little package, and I think I find that very appealing too. Some people complain, if I'm going to be at the range all day, I want to shoot as many rounds as possible. But
We're not
sometimes
gonna
I
be at the
feel
range
like,
all day.
you're not going to be at the range all day. You know, that's part of the appeal as far as I'm concerned.
Part of
So
our
I think that's
one of
cool.
the design goals when we first started doing this at Wade's East Side was to set it up so that you could shoot it with a box and a half of ammo, and be done in about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And they do this to this day. They generally sell the match out, and so call in advance if you're going to go. But generally, you could buy a box of factory ammo, maybe, and have another box in your bag that you'll use for odds and ends and extras,
Right.
and that's it. So
Yeah.
so it keeps the cost down.
Right.
Because again, we're talking about new people. They're not
Yeah.
reloaders,
Right.
so they're walking in and paying the full boat, whatever it is, to buy ammo wherever they're out.
Yeah.
So we don't want to make it 100, 150 rounds, because now all of a sudden they're spending $60 or $80 on ammo
Right.
instead of 15 or 20 bucks.
Yeah.
So they can spend 15 or 20 on ammo, 15 bucks on match fee. They're in it for $35 for the day,
Right.
doing something that they've never done before. That's really kind of stretching them as a person as far as their skills go, and it's really a valuable experience to them.
Right.
Whereas if we run it out to all of those rounds, not only is it really expensive, now we're running right off their ability to do that.
Right.
Just as
They can't spend the whole day at the range.
well, they can't. Not only can they not spend the time,
Yeah.
by the time you take a new person and you put a box full of full power ammo through them, often through a smaller gun, they're done in
Yeah.
a day.
Yep.
They really have no business shooting another 2 or 3 boxes of ammo, because it's just going to degrade their skills.
Right.
So we're looking for that positive experience. We want them to be successful. The targets are set up in such a way that they're fairly close and doable by a person with very, very basic skills.
Right. Right.
So,
Okay, so there's a little intro. Thanks to Robin and Sandy for coming out. We're going to run out to the range now and take a look at an Action Shooting International match. And let's do it.
okay. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you guys.
Shooter ready. Stand by.
Still have to do a mandatory reload. So somewhere in there. So you get to the right port.
You're finished. I'm letting you go clear.
Economy approaching. There's only 4. Yeah, there's 4 correct targets. Take 2, 1, 2.
Real marshal or an air vice marshal?
Shooter ready. Stand by. So clear.
You're ready. Stand by. Safety off. Rimfire's normally allowed. Hit. I had that thing adjusted. 2889.